Welcome, one and all, to the ancient journey. On today's journey, Spring-Heeled Jack, the terror of London. But before we get started, don't forget, if you enjoy the video, please give us a like and a share, and if you're into our content, please check out the rest of the channel and subscribe. It helps grow the channel and it keeps us producing these videos. Have you ever looked at some of your favorite comic book heroes and wondered where the inspiration for them came from? I'm not talking about the vanilla characters who stand up for truth, justice, and the American way. I'm talking about the darker characters, the ones who are more at home on those dark, lonely streets than they are in crowds of adoring fans. Whoever decided that that was a good blueprint for a superhero? Well, as it turns out, there's a great inspiration for many of those characters, and he prowled the streets of London in the 1800s. Meet Spring-Heeled Jack, a frightening entity of English folklore from the 1800s. Spring-Heeled Jack was reported all over the United Kingdom, especially in the crowded neighborhoods of London, the Midlands, and Scotland. Spring-Heeled Jack had a bizarre appearance and even stranger abilities. Jack had the appearance up close of a demon with clawed hands and eyes that glowed like red coals. One report claimed that beneath a black cloak he wore, he also had a helmet and a tight-fitting garment on underneath. Jack was tall and thin, and according to witnesses at a distance, had the appearance of an English gentleman. Get too close, though, and Jack would spring into action, literally. Jack had the ability to climb walls and jump great distances, giving him the nickname of having spring heels. In the early 1800s, ghost stories were quite popular in England. There were many reported sightings of ghosts that were said to prey on those who dared to walk alone through the streets of London. Over time, the reports of these sightings grew in detail, where eventually it was reported that some of these ghosts would actually assault people and then leap over houses to get away. And the legend of Spring-Heeled Jack was born. But are we really dealing with a ghost story here? The first sighting of Jack was in 1837, when a servant girl was attacked in London on her way home from work. A strange creature leapt at her from a dark alley, pinned her to a wall, and began to tear at her clothes and kiss her face. Her screams made the attacker quickly leap from the scene on his springed heels. The next day, a figure leapt from seemingly nowhere in front of a horse and carriage, causing the coachman to lose control and crash, causing him severe injuries. This time, several witnesses saw the attacker escape by jumping over a 9-foot wall while cackling madly. The news of these attacks would spread, and the public gave the fiend the name Spring-Heeled Jack. Before long, the mayor of London, Sir John Cowan, came to the podium at a public session at the Mansion House, the building that housed both the mayor and was used for official public hearings at the time. Sir John Cowan read off an anonymous complaint at the hearing, one which detailed the exploits of Spring-Heeled Jack, and wondered why the newspapers had been silent on the issue. The letter read, "It appears that some individuals of, as the writer believes, the highest ranks of life, have laid a wager with a mischievous and foolhardy companion, that he durst not take upon himself the task of visiting many of the villages near London in 3 different disguises, those of a ghost, a bear, and a devil, and moreover that he will not enter a gentleman's gardens for the purpose of alarming the inmates of the house. The wager has, however, been accepted, and the unmanly villain has succeeded in depriving 7 ladies of their senses, 2 of whom are not likely to recover, but become burdens on their families." At one house, the man rang the bell, and on the servant coming to the door, this worse-than brute stood in no less dreadful figure than a spectre, clad most perfectly. The consequence was that the poor girl immediately swooned, and has never from that moment been in her senses. The affair has now been going on for some time, and strange to say, the papers are still silent on this subject. The writer has reason to believe that they have the whole history at their finger ends, but through interested motives are induced to remain silent. The mayor was quite skeptical of the letter, but his constituents began to tell stories of the demon at the hearing. Soon the matter was made public in the newspapers as well, with piles of letters starting to gather at the mayor's office, all detailing the terror of London, Spring-Heeled Jack. Reports came in that people had died of fright from their encounter, and others claimed that victims were left severely wounded by the claws that Jack wore on his hands. Sightings of Spring-Heeled Jack would slow down until 1843, when a wave of sightings occurred once again. Mail coaches were attacked. In 1847, an individual was convicted of charges of assaulting women while dressed in a devil's costume, but it was not connected to the Spring-Heeled Jack sightings. In the 1870s, Spring-Heeled Jack is reported again in various places across London, and then, in 1877, Spring-Heeled Jack decides to make an attack on an army garrison. An army sentry at the Aldershot garrison peered out into the gloom one night when he saw an oddly shaped figure advancing upon him. The soldier called out to the figure, but the figure was suddenly upon him, pinning him down and slapping him in the face. The guard shot the figure, which had no effect at all, and then the strange creature leapt with an astonishing height into the darkness. In the fall of 1877, Jack leaps on to the Newport Arch in Lincolnshire, is fired at by the local residents, but leaps away once again. In the winter of 1878, Lord Ernest Hamilton's 60th Rifle Division fell under attack to Spring-Heeled Jack. The panic was so great at the Aldershot garrison that all night watchmen were given ammunition and ordered to shoot the night terror on sight. The appearances stopped, which caused Hamilton to assume it was just some sort of prank, but no one is ever caught for perpetrating this hoax. In 1888, Spring-Heeled Jack is seen on the rooftop of St. Francis Xavier's Church. He is seen again in 1904 in a nearby neighborhood. Spring-Heeled Jack is written into local penny dreadful stories as a hero, undoing wrongs and protecting the innocent despite his devilish appearance. Does any of this sound familiar yet? And since we're on the superhero trail, who could have been the real Spring-Heeled Jack? There are numerous theories to his identity. One popular one believes that Spring-Heeled Jack was mainly just a trickster, perhaps was the work of many people and not just one. A letter to Mayor Cowan in 1840 pointed to an Irish nobleman, the Marquess of Waterford, Henry Beresford, as the main suspect. The Marquess had several run-ins with police due to his frequent run-ins with women. He was famous for getting into drunken brawls, and was known to do anything for a bet. The Marquess was in London at the time of Spring-Heeled Jack's first appearances. However, he died of a horse-riding accident in 1859, and further complicating matters, Spring-Heeled Jack is also seen from 1939 to 1945 in Prague, Czechoslovakia. There he's known as the Spring Man of Prague. So Spring-Heeled Jack isn't around anymore, or at least there haven't been any sightings of him, but if you look hard enough, you might just see him here and there. Thanks for watching, and thanks for sharing the journey.